Дорогі українці, цей рік почався 24 лютого. Без передмов і прелюдій. Різко, рано, о 4-й годині. Було темно, було гучно, багатьом було складно, комусь страшно. Минуло 311 днів. Нам все ще може бути темно, гучно і складно. Але нам точно вже ніколи не буде страшно. І ніколи не буде соромно. Це був наш рік. Рік України. Рік українців. 24 лютого ми прокинулись. Інші ми, інший народ, інші українці. Перші ракети остаточно зруйнували лабіринт ілюзій. Ми побачили, хто є хто. На що здатні друзі, вороги, а головне, на що здатні ми самі. 24 лютого мільйони з нас зробили вибір. Не білий прапор, а синьо-жовтий стяг. Не втеча, а зустріч. Зустріч ворога. Опір і боротьба. Вибухи 24 лютого нас оглушили. Відтоді ми не все чуємо і не всіх слухаємо. Нам казали, у вас немає інших варіантів, аніж здатися. Ми кажемо, у нас немає інших варіантів, аніж перемогти. 24 лютого ми почали творити нашу перемогу з багатьох цеглинок, сотень інших перемог. Ми перемогли паніку. Не розбіглись, а зібрались. Ми перемогли сумніви, зневіру, страх. Ми повірили у себе, у свої сили. Збройні сили України. Розвідку, Нацгвардію, СБУ, ССО, прикордонників, тероборону, ППО, поліцію, ДСНС. Всі наші сили оборони і безпеки. Я пишаюся вами усіма, наші воїни. Цей рік можна назвати роком втрат для України, для всієї Європи, для усього світу. Але це невірно. Ми не маємо так говорити. Ми нічого не втратили. У нас забрали. Україна не втратила синів і доньок. Їх забрали вбивці. Українці не втратили домівки. Їх знищили терористи. Ми не втратили свої землі. На них зайшли загарбники. Світ не втратив мир. Росія його зруйнувала. Цей рік поранив нас у серце. Ми виплакали усі сльози, прокричали усі молитви 311 днів. Про кожну хвилину нам є що сказати, але більшість слів зайві. Вони не потрібні. Не потрібні пояснення, прикраси. Потрібна тиша, щоб почути. Потрібні паузи, щоб усвідомити. Ранок 24 лютого. Гостомель, Буча, Ірпінь, Бородянка. Харків. Мрія. Краматорськ, вокзал, іграшка. Чернігів. Маріуполь, драмтеатр, напис «Діти». Оленівка. Одеса. Багатоповерхівка. Дівчинка. 3 місяці. Вільнянськ. Пологовий. Немовля. 2 дні. Азовсталь. Це неможливо забути і неможливо пробачити. Але можливо перемогти. Ми вистояли на ногах, бо було те, що нас тримало. Наш дух. Оборона Києва. Харків. Миколаїв. Чорнобаївка. Острів Зміїний. Хаймарс, Антонівський міст, Бавовна, Кримський міст, Нептун, крейсер Москва, русский военный корабль.
Привіт, пацани!
А у вас нашивок нет?
Ізюм, Балаклія і Куп'янськ, Херсон.
Борітеся, поборете, вам Бог помагає. За вас правда, за вас сила і воля святая.
І молимось, що буде Кремінна і Сватова, Мелітополь, весь Донбас, Крим. Ми б'ємося і продовжимо битись заради головного слова «перемога». Вона точно буде. Ми йдемо до неї 311 днів. Віддали багато сил, але вмить, коли здається, що ти вже не можеш йти далі, згадайте, що ми вже з вами пройшли. Я хочу сказати усім вам, українці, ви неймовірні. Погляньте, що ми зробили і що ми робимо. Як наші воїни з перших днів розносять цю другу армію світу. Як наші люди зупиняли колони їхньої техніки. Як дід зупиняв руками танк. Як жінка збила дрон банкою помідорів.
Ви там усе своє забрали?
Як в окупації крали ворожі танки, БТРи, вертоліт, снаряди. Як збирали за години на ловців шахедів, морські дрони, броневики, швидкі і байрактари. Як витримали всі погрози, обстріли, касетні бомби, крилаті ракети, темряву і холод. Як підтримували одне одного і державу. На війні важливий кожен, хто тримає в руках зброю, кермо авто, штурвал судна чи літака, скальпель чи указку. Кожен, хто за ноутбуком, хто керує комбайном, потягом, хто на блокпосту і на електростанції, журналісти і дипломати, комунальники і рятівники, всі, хто працює, вчиться в університеті або школі, і навіть ті, хто тільки вчиться ходити. Все це заради них. Наших дітей, наших людей, нашої країни. У великій війні немає маленьких справ, немає непотрібних. Кожен з нас борець, кожен з нас фронт, кожен з нас основа оборони. Ми б'ємось як одна команда, вся країна, всі наші регіони. Я захоплююсь вами усіма. Я хочу подякувати кожному незламному регіону України. Харків, понівечений, але не скорений. Ви довели ворогу, що бути поруч територіально не означає бути поруч ментально. Харків – це українське місто, місто-герой. Незламний Миколаїв. Героїчно витримує усі удари. Місто на хвилі, яке долає усі шторми. Сумщина і Суми. Ви одні з перших відчули на собі повномасштабне вторгнення окупантів. Для них Сумщина стала кісткою в горлі. Звичайні люди робили коктейлі Молотова, палили ворожі колони. Взяли перших полонених. Сумщина – це сила. Дніпро – опора і надійний тил нашому фронту. Ви приймали людей. Ви повертали пораненим бійцям життя. Попри постійні удари, Дніпро живе. Одеса – сонячна і привітна. Тепер фортеця. Світова фортеця, яка захищає нас і яка захищає світ, годує його щоденно, відправляючи в море мільйони тонн порятунку. Бо вона – Одеса-мама. Херсон. Ви героїчні люди. Ви були в окупації більше 8 місяців, без новин, без зв'язку, відірвані від України. Тисячі з вас виходили Ходили на акції проти рашистів. Ви не знали, чи бачать це в Україні, чи знають про це. Окупанти брехали вам, що Україна вас кинула і не буде боротись за вас. Але ви вірили і попри все дочекались. Обличчя Херсону посічене уламками снарядів. Але головне, що Новий рік ми зустрічаємо вільними і разом під синьо-жовтими прапорами. А отже, все відновимо і все відбудуємо. Так само, як і Чернігів, і Запоріжжя, і Краматорськ, і Бахмут. Ті, хто став прихистком для мільйонів українців, це Рівне, Франківськ, Тернопіль, Вінниця. Я дякую вам. Ті, хто отримає і передає мільйони тонн допомоги з Європи і світу. Львів, Ужгород, Чернівці, Луцьк. Я дякую вам. Ті, хто приймає в евакуації бізнес, підприємства, університети, Хмельницький, Житомир, Кропивницький, Полтава, Черкас. Я дякую вам. І ті, хто чекає Україну і дочекається. Донбас, Луганщина, Крим. Дякуючи вам, наші воїни. І, звісно, Київщина. Київщина і Київ. Серце наше, яке завжди б'ється, дякуючи вам, усі наші українці. Ми всі одна сім'я, одна Україна. Це рік, коли Україна змінила світ, а світ відкрив Україну. Нам казали капітуляція, ми обрали контрнаступ. Нам казали йти на поступки і компроміси, ми йдемо в Євросоюз і НАТО. Світ почув Україну. Європарламент, Бундестаг, парламент Британії, Кнесет, Конгрес США. Світ відчув Україну.
Підіймають обидва прапор України.
Україна у медіа, у серцях людей, у топ-пошуку Google. Світ побачив Україну на головних площах в Торонто, Нью-Йорку, Лондоні, Варшаві, Флоренції, Сіднеї, інших містах. Українці дивують, українцям аплодують.
And the Ukrainian people deserved it.
Українці надихають. Чи є щось, що може нас злякати? Ні. Чи є хтось, хто може нас зупинити? Ні. Бо ми всі разом.
А ми тую.
нашу славну Україну. Гей, гей, розвеселимо.
Ось за що ми воюємо. За одне одного. Найкращий для нас салют на складах окупантів. Найкращий подарунок – цифри у звіті Генштабу. Ми не знаємо достеменно, що принесе нам новий 23-й рік, але готові до всього. Нові здобутки – ми будемо щасливі. Нові удари – ми будемо непохитні. Продовження боротьби – будемо битись. А коли переможемо, будемо обійматись. Дорогі українці, залишається кілька хвилин до Нового року. Я хочу всім нам зараз побажати одного – перемоги. І це головне – одне побажання для всіх українців. Нехай цей рік буде роком повернення наших людей, воїнів до своїх родин, полонених до своїх домівок, переселенців до своєї України. Повернення наших земель і тимчасово окуповані стануть назавжди вільними. Повернення до звичайного життя, до щасливих хвилин без комендантської години, до земних радощів без повітряних тривог, повернення того, що у нас вкрали, дитинства наших дітей, спокійної старості нашим батькам, щоб на канікулах онуки приїхали до бабусь і дідусів на Ковуни, у Херсон, на Черешню, в Мелітополь, щоб наші міста були вільні, наші друзі вірні. І щоб у звітах біля цифри 100 тисяч знищених ворогів, тисяч одиниць знищеної російської техніки з'явилась наша головна цифра і головний успіх – 603 тисячі 628 кілометрів квадратних. Площа незалежної України. Як це було від 1991 року. І як це буде завжди. Нехай все це принесе новий рік. Ми готові за це боротись. Ось чому кожен з нас тут. Я тут. Ми тут. Ви тут. Всі тут. Ми всі – це Україна. Слава Україні! З Новим роком!
Hey everyone. Unfortunately, no New Year for another day, but the speech was very, very strong, and I think it was just a great start for us to have a baseline that we. Sorry, it's a little bit still hard to talk. I a little bit have tears in my eyes as well. Still, I'm a little bit choking in my throat. It was heartbreaking at moments, especially now we know how 2023 ended up being, and what did come true, what did not come true. A lot of aspirations broke against the grim reality of the everyday slog, inconsistency, not sufficient deliveries, not sufficient planning, not sufficient execution, the harsh reality. But the aspirations were there. And the good news that we look back at the year that passed is that I still see the same aspirations in the eyes and words of my friends from Ukraine. They definitely are rugged now, more rugged than they were a year ago. But then again, aren't we all by this point? Ask yourself, how do you feel? I can tell from my own. Sometimes it feels really weird. It feels that I don't even remember what a peaceful existence ever was. What is this peace that we talk about when you could travel, when there is no explosions, when every day you don't look at statistics, oh, how many people, how many hundreds of thousands of people were killed during this day. It's not that you don't go online and you see new videos of bombs dropping, people exploding, Russians firing missiles at Ukrainian cities again and again and again and again and again, day after day after day after day. I already cannot remember the time that it was pre-peace. And I think a lot of my Ukrainian friends, and I definitely know that a lot of other people that are in this community, they remember that as well. So I still look very much into the upcoming new year with a lot of hope, mostly because at the end of the day, I know who is Putin up against. The people of Ukraine, they have each other. They have us, people that will support Ukraine no matter what. They have the strength, the inner strength, the core that have withstood everything. And as we just saw in Zelensky's speech, he very nicely listed a lot of these things. Like, remember what it was all starting with. Remember how far from where the start was and where are we ending now. We're now talking about when will Ukraine start having planes to dominate and contest airspace. We're talking about is the numbers and hundreds of supply tanks of supply tanks of the Western models are enough now. At the end of 2022, there was not even a talks about delivering the tanks. There was not even a talks about delivering the infantry fighting vehicles, Bradleys, Martyrs, infantry fighting vehicles, like battle taxis, basically, with a little bit of a gun. All of that happened in 2023. That is the year when Ukraine felt that there is support. And then it felt that we betrayed a lot of that support by not delivering on our promises. A lot of the statings that we will be with Ukraine forever until the victory or as long as it takes have hit us in the West the hardest, not Ukraine. Ukrainians are doing exactly what they have been doing for the year before. They are fighting it. They are trying to win it. They are showing Russians that it doesn't matter how many guns they have. Start of the year, remember, Russia still has the overwhelming advantage in artillery. It's now we're talking about, hey, Ukraine was even able with deliveries from the Western powers to reach some kind of parity with artillery, to target and kill a lot of the Russian artillery supply depots, a lot of their destroyed a lot of their self-propelled pieces and other pieces of artillery. All of this happened this year. Russia is far from defeated. I don't want us to understand, because right now we're in a war of resources. But what I am completely confident in is that if Ukraine loses this war, which I don't believe it will definitely not be because of Ukraine. It will be because we were not as strong. This channel focuses on saying Ukraine matters. And that message is very clear. I am not Ukrainian. I am just there to try to support Ukraine. So it's up to us to make sure that we don't break, that it's our resolve on the line. Ukrainians, they have the resolve. They have the courage. They have the possibilities. They just need the resources and the guns to do it. The less we support Ukraine, the harder we make it for them. Blood on Ukrainians is on also our national politicians' hands, with their dwindling supplies or slow deliveries or anything else. But I'm still very optimistic because Russia is not looking great, despite of what a lot of media are trying to state. Media is driving all of these narratives about trying to excuse Russia at all costs. Just look at this. Like I'm actually just gonna illustrate this right now. This just came up. It's an article in the New York Times today. So after yesterday, when Russia struck Ukraine, one of the most massive strikes, killed a lot of civilians, now New York Times posts an articles about Ukrainian missile attacks, which is not proven. Absolutely not proven that it was Ukrainian, there was Ukrainian missiles. There is no evidence of that. Even Russian sources at first stated that it was their own anti-air defense that was firing. They just later retracted that. But the worst thing is that they take this article with the supposedly Ukrainian missiles striking Russia, and they're illustrating it with a picture of Ukrainian city being destroyed and Ukrainians trying to save the lives of other Ukrainians without even blinking an eye. That's the world we're living in. That is how we are not supporting Ukraine strongly enough. So I wish us, you can take it as a New Year's wish. I wish we have more resolve in a new year. More resolve to not just look at Ukraine. I think the fight into Ukraine and that Ukraine needed things, I think they're doing well. I think now the fight is with us. The fight is for the Americans, the Europeans, Canadians, everyone else, that Australians as well, Brits, all of you guys, and myself actually included as well, we need to fight our fight. We need to make sure that our governments continue supporting Ukraine. And that is the resolution that will bring the victory for Ukraine. That is the resolution that will prevent a lot of lives being lost for nothing. And I'm hoping that we'll make through. And we're going to do everything that we can on this channel to make it happen. It's not a big channel, but I'm very proud of what we achieved also during this year. We started this year with, I believe we were like 30,000 people, maybe less. It was not a lot. Now we are over 100,000. Incredible. And I'm very glad to be here for you, and I'm very glad to be here with you. And I'm also very glad to be here with the moderating team. I want to say huge thanks to everyone on the moderating team. I want to please call everyone that is right now in chat to also give a hand for the moderating team for their hard work during the year, because that is what got us through. They are the ones that are keeping the comments civil. They're the ones that are doing a lot of work beyond the eyes. They're not on the cameras. They're not speaking, but their work is extremely important for the success of this channel. But we start, and I think overall it was a tough year. It was definitely a tough year. We definitely needed to overcome ourselves, to not be desensitized, to not get into this mood of Ukraine is just like the war is just happening. We need to remember what this is fighting for. So let's do it. Let's talk and try to remember both the things that happened this year, the things that could have ended the war as well, and the things that might happen next year. Ask away your questions. I'm not going to open any kind of a Q&A chat. I want to have more of a flowing discussion today. So if I'm going to miss your questions, sorry right away. I'm just going to answer whatever I see. And we're gonna talk about, because I also have things to say specifically. I've looked back into this year about what it was that was really good. And also something we talked a lot with moderators recently is that there was an actual moment during this year where it felt that the war might end. It was when Prigozhin went to assault Kremlin. And I had this long stream during that time, about 8 hours and so on, about that what we might see is a huge internal turmoil within Russia, and that we might see finally Russia refocusing from attacking and killing Ukrainians to solving their own internal problems. And it was the hope. And I was very excited to see what it's going to end up with. Unfortunately, on this channel and anywhere else, this is actually true for every kind of analysis and predictions that anyone is making. Analytics and predictions can be made only in some kind of a rational framework. You can analyze only rational thinking, and you can try to predict rational and logical thinking. If there is an element of irrationality, then the number of outcomes, the number of possibilities just explodes. That's just common sense. And for Prigozhin to stop right before entering Moscow and essentially signing his own death sentence was the stupidest idea. And it was incredible to believe that I was actually alive to see this. A person that had the opportunity of a lifetime just at the last moment decided, no, I would rather kill myself instead. And it was not just disappointment, it was absolutely incredible, the incompetence, the inability to see what this will lead to. It's absolutely incredible. So all the all the members right now, we have added some emojis. Yes, and there is a Prigozhin emoji. So you can have a blast with it. It was incredible. Like, because we definitely could have seen the war end in a state that it is now, right? Because when Putin would have a combat for power, he might have win it, like if Prigozhin went to Moscow, but he just didn't made one less step. He just decided to kill himself, and that is impossible to predict. That's just too dumb to be true. I look forward to when there are movies about certain things and how they will play it, but it's it's like, imagine this would be a movie plot. Like, imagine if it would be a plot for the movie. That would be the dumbest thing ever. Like, people, the critics would come out and say it was nonsensical. There was like no sense to the logic of the main character. The main character was rebelling against something. It's like Luke. Like, I don't know. Sorry, not everyone knows Star Wars, but you get my point. That's the outcome. We talked extensively about Ukrainian counteroffensive, so I'm not gonna delve well into it. So I would rather kind of talk about questions, and there's a lot of gifted subs here as well. Jakub, thank you so much for sharing some memberships. It's very, very helpful. Floyd, thanks so much for $10. Appreciate it. Just me fella, welcome. Last one, 207, member for 4 months. Heroim Slava, release the Kraken. Absolutely, my friend. OCT, thank you so much for incredible support you did this whole year. I appreciate it. Thank you. He says, thank you to Ali. Thank you to Georgie's. Thank you. Roberto, welcome to the Brother in Arms. Yvonne, thank you for 5 gifted memberships. Jakub, thank you so much for being a member for 10 months. We're going to add more emojis as well later on. There are already plans for it. We have about like 20 more space slots for it, so we're going to add them. Niels, Slava Ukraini, for sure, my friend. Heroim Slava. Bieber and Dolik's journey. Yeah, that was incredible. I want a movie about Bieber and Dolik. Man, what a, like, do you think it's gonna be like a dark comedy? Like I think this could be a dark comedy. Like, it's definitely something that can be there. Some kind of like a comedy of like, oh my god, it's so bad. Yes. Oh, Mark is reminding me that I should mention the online shop. Yes. So, guys, we have some recently started this because we are 2,400 here, which is incredible. Welcome. But something you might have not known is that we actually have a merch store. And you can buy stuff related to Ukraine over there. The store operates the same way as the channel does. So significant parts of the profits go to Ukrainian military. And to be honest, I love the store for the most part because I feel my consciousness is clear right now. I've never in my life really loved taking money from people. I always feel a little bit of shame. Maybe it was because of my, like, how I was raised. And not because I don't appreciate the donations, but it still felt like, you know, it was like, did I really earn a donation? Like, I know that technically, like, I do. I make videos and so on. But it was still like, you know, the capitalist in me says like, okay, the product and so on does matter. So for me, the store is an absolutely the thing that I love the most, and I really wanted to get it out, and I'm happy that it's finally there. Because in my worldview, it's a win-win-win. You get something for yourself, the profits also support the channel, and the part of the profits will also go to the Ukrainian armed forces. So I, for my own sake, would really love to have this as the big focus going into the future, because I really believe that you should be also rewarded for your support somehow, not just spending money on donations nonstop. That's why I really want to, I don't know, maybe I'm just too commercial in my thinking. Like I just like when people get something for their money. Ukrainian matters in obviously, if you just want to support Ukraine, you should. Under most of my videos, I have links to Ukrainian like charities where money goes directly to Ukraine, or something that we're doing right now. We're doing donations to the NAFO with NAFO 69, and we are doing these convoy trucks, not the convoy trucks. We're gathering the money for the NAFO 69 brigade to get a truck to two trucks actually to Ukrainian armed forces. Excellent trucks with like jammers, drone jammers. So if you just want to donate, there is also a possibility for that. So just to make sure that we have all bases covered. S. Moore, thanks so much for 20 bucks. Shimra, most important lesson of 2023 is that Russian people are hopeless and will not oppose the war over being outraged at casualties. This isn't Afghanistan or Chechnya. The war will end when Ukraine wins on the battlefield. I partially agree. I agree. But I think, like, especially if we're comparing to Afghanistan, it's a lot more complex and nuanced problem, because war in Afghanistan was going for 9 years. Plus, it was during the period of like glasnost, which is when bad news were allowed to be shared. So one might have said that if there would not be news coming out in public from Afghanistan, then there would not be protests against the Russians sending their troops. And if there were not war for 9 years, potentially it would also not impact. It's like sociology, like especially mass sociology, especially society like Russians, is hard to predict. I definitely don't think specifically after Prigozhin's coup that we should not put any kind of bets on Russians rising up or doing things right, because it feels that even if they are going to try to do something, they're going to fuck it up at some point. So definitely I agree with the general principle of the narrative, but the examples here are a little bit different. In Chechnya, I'll remind you, Russia lost. Like first Chechen war, Russia lost. Russian army lost the first Chechen war. The only problem is that they agreed essentially to a peace negotiations after that, because Chechnya didn't completely broke the Russian army. It just broke them in a moment, and Russia essentially signed something akin to Minsk Accords like Ukraine did in 2014, and then Russia came back. That's the normal pattern of Russians. That's why any kind of negotiations and peaceful solution that will be signed with Russia is absolute BS, and it has historically been violated by Russia again and again and again. They'll just need to recoup the strengths, prepare a little bit better. Yeah. Shut up and take your Donatellos. Yeah, appreciate Donatellos. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like donations. I like donations. I just feel that it's a little bit more honest to all parties involved if you also get something, because I like when people get shit. Like, for example, I like when Russia getting pummeled. That I like. When Russians get a taste of their own medicine, that is something I like. So let's talk about the hot topic, Belgorod, or Belgorod's People's Republic, as I mentioned today in the community post. How should we feel? Should we be sorry about the Russian casualties there and so on? It's a complex question, right? There is definitely some sort of a care that some people might have against civilians dying in a war. I think that's a fair narrative. If you're not a Russophobe, fair enough. Good on you. Like, if you say it's like, oh, there is a war, civilians die in a war, that's bad. In that sense, I agree. However, taking it any kind of further, I think, is a complete non-starter, stating that, it's Ukraine deliberately targeted civilians and so on. And here we start getting to our problems, like the same as we went with the New York Times article over here, with that Ukrainian missiles strike Russians. I am not sure that it was Ukrainian missiles, and I'm not sure that it was Ukrainians that struck missiles. I don't say it's Russians and Russian anti-air systems, but firstly, this is what the Russians themselves have been claiming. At the start, they just deleted those claims later on. But more importantly, it falls very much out of the pattern of Ukraine. Like, hear me out. Ukraine has been fighting this war for 2 years. They have had the chance to strike everything that Russia is having with pretty much majority of weapons. Like, I need to open a map for you so you understand what I mean. So let's look at this one. So if we open deep state map here, we can see that there is this border of Ukraine, and there is the Belgorod. So if we take this ruler over here and we take, okay, Ukraine is not going to bring any kind of firing system right next to the border. So usually it's about 5 to 10 kilometers range. So we're going to take about 5 kilometers behind the border, and it's about 40 kilometers to Belgorod. Ukraine could have shelled Belgorod for whole 2 years, yet it didn't. Instead, Ukraine has been using drones, missiles, and all of the other things to strike mostly military targets. More importantly, supposedly Ukraine is now having real big problems with the capacity of ammunition at the front line, because remember, Russia is attacking. Before, Ukraine used mostly long-range drones to attack into Russia, because longer-range drones, or like even shorter-range drones in case of Belgorod, but again, like 40 kilometers is not completely short-range drone. Those make sense because otherwise on the battlefield they don't really pay that much effort. So the point that I'm making here is that it's a very out of pattern attack. Just suddenly starting shelling the center of the cities, because supposedly by Russian claims, if we believe, it was the systems like Hrad, like BM-21 Hrad. And then here comes the other part, because they claim that it was Czech manufactured Vampir Grad system that was attacking Belgorod. Second problem comes that these Vampir systems, their range is about 20 kilometers. I think I can put this here. So there are different types over here of weapons in Deep State Map. If you didn't know, there we go. Let's see. There we go. BM-21 Grad. So you see the issue with that, right? So if it was Hrad rockets, then was it some kind of special Hrad rockets? Because the only kind of Hrad rockets that technically can reach Belgorod, I believe, is called Vilha. I am not sure how it's called. MLRS, Vampir, Uragan, Verba. Is there Vilha here? Vilha. There we go. Let's take Vilha M2, the most newest one. So that is Vilha. That is like a medium range missile. And Ukraine has maybe 2 of these. Okay, maybe this is an overkill. Maybe they use an older version. But the point still stands. Vilha, Ukraine only has a couple of these. Things don't line up. Things just don't line up for this. There's a lot of questions. It wasn't the drones, because a lot of the explosions that were happening, they were happening without the relevant noise of drones. So usually drones, when they strike, so usually there is like a sound like, and then there is explosion. This case, it was just like a second and then split second and then it's just the explosion. The explosions are also not very large. If you look at the videos, it wasn't any kind of S-300 systems. It was more of a smaller system. So it's not completely clear. Like, could it be Grads? Yes. But again, how did they reach Belgorod? And again, what was the point? What was the point? So that's why I'm stating right now that jumping to these conclusions is a way too early. It's possible that Ukraine did indeed shell Belgorod. I'm not saying it's impossible. Potentially it is. But it's unclear to me personally yet what exactly it was. I hope that makes sense. GLSDB, yeah, that's the point. Like I say, maybe it was GLSDB. Yes, why would you shell, like, imagine GLSDB, you just get GLSDB, it just arrives to your front line. You're being attacked on front lines all over Ukraine, east and south. Why do you fire them at Belgorod? Why? Why? Why don't you use this to fire at Russian positions that are attacking? Yes, that's the Shelley. That's what I'm saying. That all of the patterns so far for 2 years was Ukraine going after military targets. Even longer range drones were going pretty much always after military targets. So it's unclear to me how it was supposed to be just Ukraine at some point, like just waking up this morning, is like, we're gonna shell fucking Belgorod. It just kind of falls out of pattern. So it's unclear. I think there is more to the story, and that's why I'm not jumping to conclusions. Troop concentration in Belgorod. No, there is no troop concentration. Russia is not having a lot of troops to concentrate. They have engaged all of their troops pretty much on the front line. They have little to no reserves at this point at all. They're sending all of the reserves to the front lines because they are sensing a weakness, because Ukraine is not getting deliveries as fast as they want from the allies. So they are kind of starved for resources. Russia is using this lull in Ukrainian battle effectiveness to try to pressure and take what they can take. So right now, Russian resources are east and south. There is not a lot of troops concentration in Belgorod. At least they're not planned to be engaged. False flag potentially, but I'm not claiming anything here. I'm just saying there is a lot more like that like there's questions that I don't see immediate answers to. This is what I want to say. Your guess is as good as mine. So I'm just saying I'm better than New York Times that are jumping to conclusions. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you all have more critical thinking than New York fucking Times. Yes, but if it was a weapons cache located in Belgorod, okay. So same thing. Look, if it's a weapons cache, Belgorod is located right over here. So Ukraine has M777, and they have something that is called high precision Excalibur rounds. So, and high precision Excalibur rounds, as you can see, can fire quite well and quite far from the almost a border region. So if Ukraine really needed to take certain things out with precision, really, that they needed to put some kind of missiles there, maybe, just maybe, they could use precision artillery, field artillery, barrel artillery. I'm not even talking about drones and everything else, that they're also high precision missiles. So again, questions. Stephen Walsh, it's about sending a message about the porousness of Russia. They can't control it and handle greets from Far East Alaska. Thank you so much for $100. I believe that was already demonstrated, right? Russia already know that it's porous. Russia already know the drones have been flying to Russia, not daily, but like weekly, right? So it's not a point that have not been made before. Also, if we're talking specifically about Hrad missiles, they are notoriously difficult to stop because they are so simple in design. Essentially, a tube with explosive and a jet propellant at the end. So it's very hard to intercept them. It's a weak point. Like, you know, it's like, oh, you have this city that is super close, and that's the only way that we can fire at it. Maybe I just feel that, like, again, it's not fully painting this narrative for me that I can agree with this, that it's a workable theory. So far, I don't know. Like, potentially, maybe it's a rogue element. Maybe, just maybe. Right now, there is like some, maybe it's like Russian resistance corps or Russian, like these Russian Nazis that are fighting for Ukraine. Maybe it's them driving a couple of Russian grads and just decided to shell Belgorod. They have been known to strike cities and so on. They're doing their incursions. I don't know. There is questions and I don't have the answers to them. What I do say, again, I will, last time, is that don't jump to fucking conclusions and be like New York Times. No, bad New York Times. Terrible. Also, don't take Ukrainians saving Ukrainians as a picture to depict Russians. Bad New York Times. Ooh. But the funny part is about what Russians are stating about this in their media channels. What you know about Ukrainians, if you've seen how Ukrainians respond to Russian shelling their cities, this is when Ukrainians are coming together. This is the moment of you're in peril, I'm in peril, let's support each other. That's how Ukrainians are reacting to Russian aggression. They are solidifying. They are fighting together to defend what they have. They're supporting each other. That's the response that we also see right now came out after yesterday's Russian shelling. On the other hand, the Russians reacted to this Belgorod attack in an immense wave of critique on the Russian Telegram channels, and specifically on the local Belgorod channels. So like not the pro-war channels, but like just local Belgorod channels that are used to describe, you know, like local events and stuff like that, local forums. And they started shitting on Putin, on how bad the anti-air system is, on how defenseless they are. So they started shitting so much on the Russian government that they had to close down the comment sections on a lot of these Telegram channels and forums because, you know, like speaking against the Russian government in Russia is not safe for anyone. They didn't came together. Well, or maybe one can say they kind of came together, but they came together not after Ukraine, but more about after Putin. So right now, it doesn't seem that this attack really solidified Russian society around, I don't know, more killing of Ukrainians. The only one that are calling for more Ukrainians to be killed, for the most part, are the Z channels, like the super Nazis in their ultimate. But we already kind of know that, right? So it's not anything new. We already knew that there is a lot of majority. There is a strong prevalence in Russian society of these Z Nazis that just want to destroy the world, basically, and capture everything and make sure that everyone lives as shitty as they are. Shmir Jaman, how is the current artillery shell situation at the front compared to what it was like during mid to 2022 days when places like Lysychansk were lost? Oh, it's times and times better. To simplify it, like let me simplify it like this. So when places like Lysychansk was taken, the ratio was about 1 to 25. So for every 1 Ukrainian shells, Russians could fire 25 shells. That was about during that time. During this year, specifically during the summer offensive of Ukraine, we came to a ratio of about 1 to 2, where Russians could fire 2 shells for every 1 Ukrainian shell. maybe 1 to 3. Let's put it like this: 1 to 3. So Russians could fire 3 shells, whereas Ukrainians could fire 1 shell. But because Ukrainian artillery is a lot more precise, a lot more robust, a lot more technologically savvy, they were able to match and overtake even on effectiveness of that artillery. Now we are back to about 1 to 6, 1 to 7 ratio. So this is already kind of going below that Ukrainian capability to match it. So Russia has dominant firepower. If we take on specific directions such as Avdiivka, where Russians are incredibly concentrating, attacking, there the ratio goes more to 1 to 10. So it's bad, but it's not as super critical. This is about the level of Bakhmut, like about that ratio, maybe a little bit less. I think Bakhmut was more like 1 to 15-ish, something like this. Again, I'm taking numbers from the top of my head and mostly just to illustrate. Don't take these numbers, don't quote me on them. It's more just to kind of ratio this, all of these things in your head. Though I'm pretty confident about summer numbers, I am less confident about these numbers right now, and I'm just not completely confident on the numbers on the front line right now. It's just the general example. And it is not more about accuracy. 1 to 6 ratio, if Russia has dominant firepower, is it not more about accuracy? Yes, it is accuracy, but artillery has suppressive element to it. So let's put it this way. So Ukrainian artillery has the damaging effect, are matching the Russian damaging effect, but they're still not fully matching the suppressive effect of artillery. A lot of artillery has suppressive effect, and by the sheer quantity, that suppressive effect is achieved. So that's important to always keep in mind. So, like, for example, if the area is being shelled, like if it's a counter battery fire, imagine Russians don't hit anything in the area, but they continue suppressive fire in that area for about a couple of hours. So Ukrainian artillery cannot roll out in those positions and just fire at the Russian positions because they're suppressed. They don't really hit anything, but they're still suppressed. Whereas Ukrainians would maybe send out a drone, and drone would coordinate Ukrainian attack to make sure that they would hit those Russian artilleries instead of trying to suppress them. That's the example I think that you need to kind of keep in mind. Maria, welcome. Yeah. It's hard to be mobile while being shelled. Yeah, I mean, no. Usually, if you're shelled, if you're in a vehicle, usually you're very, very mobile. At least that's what my friends are saying. But yeah. In general, like if you are in hidden, like if you're in hiding, if you're in trenches, then obviously you cannot move out. Right. Remember, if you want to write a question, I'm not having a question and answer section today, so just write at Ukraine Matters, and then it gets highlighted for me, and then I can read as a question. That meme, Rodrigo, that meme of naked gun just felt appropriate for this event. Nothing to see here. Yes, for sure. Tosun, Abi, Ukraine can produce 1 million FPV drones in a year, but Russia cannot create 1 million soldiers or 1 million tanks in a year. Why Ukraine doesn't focus heavily on FPV production? Even women FPV squads can be formed. So you added that question has a lot of complexity in it. So let's start with the 1 million FPV drones. That is not what Zelensky said. That is not what the strategic... well, I mean, that's more or less what strategic initiative director... I don't know the precise English name of her position. But the 1 million FPV drones is a plan for the next year. not what Ukraine has produced right now. It's not going to appear there when the clock sticks 12. It's going to appear during the next year, and it's going to get produced. And it's also is a subject to components. Majority of FPV components come from China and Taiwan, specifically the electronics. There are bottlenecks with those deliveries because both parties want to have FPVs and they want to have them in increased quantities. Moreover, because of the war in Ukraine, other militaries have expressed desire and interest to have FPVs included in their militaries. And right now, a lot of other contractors are being, well, tasked to assemble and getting the same components Ukraine and Russia will be fighting for to get those 1 million FPV drones made for maybe both sides. Russia cannot create 1 million soldiers yet. The Russian mobilization is expected after Putin's inauguration into the next presidential term in March. So it's expected that the next wave of Russian mobilization will start late March, April. 1 million tanks, that's very true. There are, however, issues with tanks. Right now, already FPV density is quite high, that a lot of equipment is only getting destroyed if that equipment is shown. Majority of equipment that is not being used in attacks is being kept 5 to 10 kilometers away from the front lines. The FPV drone technology is not yet developed enough to allow to fly the FPV drones significant distances. Ukraine is experimenting with this, where they have a bigger, like a mothership drone, which has a couple of FPVs attached to it. So that, and it has also relay on it. So that bigger drone flies into the Russian territory, from which then FPV drones detach, and then the FPV they use relay on that bigger drone to then target certain artillery pieces or equipment that Russia has in the second lines of defense. So if Russia stops attacking, the equipment losses will start slowly going down. And Russia still has significant equipment storages. They can fight at the current tempo for a year still with little problem. So there's a lot of tanks Russia still has. Maybe not million, but thousands. It's not as easy to take out tank as sometimes it seems. Why doesn't UA focus on FPV drone production? It does, but you should keep in mind the questions with regard to components and with regard to everything else that I talked about. And then you say even women can form FPV squads and so on. Fair enough, but there are two nuances here. First one, when we're talking mobilization, we go into the fact that a mobilized person needs to be taken out of economy. To have mobilized person be a soldier, there needs to be about 6 people working to support that mobilized soldier. So when you're taking, for example, what is planned right now for next year for Ukraine to mobilize additional 500,000 people, that would require, is it 3 million? I hope my math is on point. That would require 3 million people to dedicatedly full-time work, not just exist as a statistic. Don't be children, don't be elderly, just work and produce resources to an economic resources availability to sustain that person on the front line. That is a huge dip into Ukrainian economy. Ukrainian economy is not having a good time. It's having troubles. The grain export definitely help, but delays both in support from the European Union and also from United States prevent a lot of these planning. So there is not a lot of ability to expand this without going into significant debt. And right now Ukraine has very bad relationship with debtors. Let's put it this way. Getting normal debts and budget deficits for Ukraine is kind of hard. That's why the specific dedicated packages that are now being blocked by Hungary or by MAGA Republicans in US, that's why they're not being delivered, and it's a problem for Ukraine. I hope this covers the majority of complexity within your question about why Ukraine just doesn't have 1 million FPV drones next year and also have people that are flying it. Oh, and the last part about the women being in the military, it's a cultural thing. Ukraine still has a lot of these post-Soviet cultures where women are still not perceived as fighters. Despite the fact that Ukraine has a lot of volunteer women, for example, Zelensky himself, he doesn't want to allow women to be mobilized forcefully. So he doesn't. He said in his not speech, but like press conference, he explained that he would not sign the bill if there would be a requirement to mobilize women. Eric, can some of 300 billion be used to create contracts with the artillery shell producers to increase production, or is that a more complicated issue? No, Eric, you are spot on. You are spot on, because that is exactly what is expected to happen with 300 millions. If they're accepted for Ukraine, it is expected that instead of buying stuff for these 300 millions, Ukraine instead will make contracts, create factories, create production chains and production lines to then kick off production of equipment on their own, independent from any kind of supply from the world. That is why this 300 billion is so important. It would allow Ukraine to invest into their own military production, into their own military production contracts. So they would not be dependent on the political goodwill or the popular goodwill from the EU and the US, unfortunately. With all the love to them, of course. Mercy, thank you, Georgie. Slava Ukraini, absolutely. Gary, thank you so much, $20. Keep up the good work. Absolutely, every time. TJ Joe, NATO needs to meet soon and announce spending until April. They announced after April 10 billion per month spend down of Russian assets per month to fund the war thereafter. Hope they will. Captain Copenhagen, thank you so much for 45 Corona. Got new raw. Ilimul, thank you, Copenhagen. Captain Copenhagen. Ilimul. Yes, good new raw. Yeah, a lot of Ukrainian women volunteer. There's like, I believe, around 50,000, if I'm not wrong. Maybe it was 80,000. So it's a lot. It's like tens of thousands of women that are in Ukrainian military. There's a lot of women in Ukrainian military. That is already allowed. It's more about the question about the forceful mobilization, mandatory mobilization of women. Rick Sanchez, thanks so much for being a member for 3 months. Thank you so much for Hippo. Is climate change affecting the war in Ukraine? Yes. Yes. We already saw this last time, right? Last winter. Remember, Russia promised that it will freeze Europe, and it ended up being a flop. Why that happened? Why there wasn't a colder winter? That's because of climate change. Your thoughts about the future of US and EU support? I think we're focusing a lot on things that should be resolved. There is a will, there is a majority of will support, both in EU and US. It's just we just kind of fumble around without finding a solution. I feel we're not fighting hard enough to make it happen, despite there's being a will. It's kind of sad. Any update about Cream 2? Guys, Cream 2 is a in development system. It's not to scale. If there will be 300 billion support for 5,000 women. Okay, oh, sorry. I thought it was larger. Was it not? Ukraine. How many women serve? No, wait. Now almost 43,000 servicemen in the service of Ukrainian army. That was 16th of October 2023. No, 43,000. 5,000 women serve on the front lines. Okay, front lines, yes. So 43,000 women in the military, 5,000 on the front lines. Okay. Why is the new year in Ukraine today or not tomorrow? It's tomorrow. It's not today. We saw Zelensky's speech just to remind us what it was last year. Nikki Haley is the only Republican that wants to support Ukraine openly, by the way. Yeah, global warming is not a joke. You're wrong. You are entitled to your own wrong opinion. Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you guys don't have a lot of questions today, so I will be able to... Oh, wait, no, there is a lot of... David, if big US aid package is denied by the House, will there be pressure to use the 300 billion frozen Russian funds for military aid instead of being earmarked reconstruction? So the issue with 300 billion frozen assets is that they are being held in Europe and specifically in like countries that are more friendly to Russia. So that's the problem. US has, I believe, around 3 billion in total. So it's a very relatively small number. To New Yorkers, when is Australia sending these 10 Slinger anti-drone systems? I don't know. If there is an Australian that knows, please educate. When are you sending the 10 Slingers anti-drone systems? Happy New Year, yeah, for sure. Paul Gray, thanks so much for 6 Australian bucks. Oh, can you answer when are you sending 10 anti-drone systems called Slinger? So thank you for being the Australian that volunteered. What do you think about support from UK since Boris left? I think it was strong at the start of the year. Since then, it's been constant. Very little to complain, but definitely any kind of enthusiasm or being willingness to be a front runner kind of dropped. But it has been very, very constant. Yeah, Chris Christie has been supporting Ukraine, fair enough, but I don't really see him as a serious candidate. So forgive my how do you say, skepticism for this. Like Nikki Haley is because like it's relevant to talk about Nikki Haley because she has a little bit of a shot, and specifically it's unclear whether or not Trump will be allowed. I'm not going to turn this stream into politics. I'm just going to explain my positions, and I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to comment on the outcomes. It's for US guys to decide. You can duke it out somewhere outside of this chat. But Nikki Haley, it's relevant to talk because she's like rising in the polls and stuff. Christie has very, very small base that's supporting him. That's pretty much it. So... Yes. Keepy just donated for the truck and got a free laugh. Nice. Donorbox needs to fix their website. Apparently you can now donate, but screenshot sent to Discord chat. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Mark Bones, thoughts about possible government change in Germany in 2025 and the refuse to help Ukraine anymore? I've heard some of that. However, so far there was very little data to support this. Like doomerism and threats, yes, but the facts are not on the ground to support that statement. So I am not worried about Germany at all for now. Tosunab, my point about FPE was they can chase and kill anything, moving tanks, soldiers, better than any RT, anyone can use system like villagers. No, you should not compare FPVs to artillery. Very different systems, very different purpose. Don't compare artillery to the FPV drones. FPV makes a difference, yes. Faster to create FPVs than 155 mil, questionable. Again, different systems, different purposes. It's not one or the other. It needs to be both. Retro Computing, have you lived in Denmark since you speak? Maybe only a few phrases Danish. New Year's greeting from Copenhagen. What do you mean? Well, what do you mean? Dude, tomorrow at 6 I'm gonna be listening the monarch speech, so I am living in Denmark. I'm living in Odense. Thoughts on John Mersheimer? He's full of shit. We saw the Ukrainian Air Force reveals F-16 in hangar. No, it wasn't a Ukrainian F-16 drone reveal. It was an advertisement from actually this clothing brand, the short that I'm wearing, which is called Aviatsiya Khalichiny. They are starting, they are making like airplane themed clothing. For example, this one is a tribute to the Mriya. That's why the colors are opposite. Because on the Mriya, the plane, the big plane, the biggest plane in the world that Ukraine had and was destroyed by Russia, the colors were opposite. And it's a tribute to that plane. And what the Aviatsiya Khalichiny did, they started their new clothing line for F-16s. So what you saw was the clothing company's advertisement. Yes. Yeah, Denmark. Shimra, this is a complicated question, but can you sum up Ukrainian opinion on postponing elections instead of a dumb Western opinions we keep hearing? It is forbidden by the Ukrainian constitution. Like, let's put it in the American Western opinions. So when in your founding fathers has stated there shall be no elections during the war, I'm drawing parallels, don't take it literally, but the same point goes. If there is a constitution, the constitution clearly states that during the war time there is no elections. So it is possible to change the constitution. However, question is during a wartime when there is a martial law, when there are no elections, can the current parliament change the constitution? Is it allowed to? So it's a difficult question that goes a long way. Are you satisfied with Denmark's efforts? I'm not satisfied with anyone's efforts because Ukraine still hasn't won. So I'm happy with what Denmark is doing. I'm hoping they can do more. Georgia, look up the Slinger anti-drone system will help Ukraine big time when it arrives. If it's only 10 units, I'm calling doubts because Ukraine needs a lot. Ukraine needs quantity, but any bit, a little bit help. I'm worried about the wealth of African countries where Russians support dictators financing the war with Ukraine. Comments. Yeah, it's... You know, we in the West, we have a lot more leverage than we are allowing ourselves to use. This is more of a question whether or not we want to prevent it. Can you link to the brand, my guy? Yes. Yes, so it's it's how do I put it? I don't feel that if we would put pressure and say you shall not support Russia, that African countries will willingly start supporting Russia. Russia is a toxic asset. And it's only our unwillingness to turn it into a toxic asset and to turn up the pressure is why Russia is having it easier than it should. Okay, I'm going to look up Slinger. So Slinger anti-drone. Yeah, it's a gun. So it's great. Like any little bit helps, but it like Ukraine is huge. So let's put it this way. Let me show. So Slinger can fire moving drones beyond 800 meters. So it's about 1 to 2 kilometer range, right, of one Slinger system. So if we open our map here, right? If we just open our map and we say, okay, Slinger drone can fire up to 2 kilometers. So if it's 2 kilometers, both sides, it's 4 kilometers in total. So 4 kilometers in total, that's about yay big. Is it helpful? Yes. Can it significantly impact protection of Ukraine? No. Will it help locally? Absolutely. Should we be grateful to Australia for that? Yes. Should we make a super grand big deal about this? Yeah, Ukraine will win for sure. No doubt. Is the Russian Holodomor coming? No, I don't think so. Russia can produce food, they just cannot sell it. They're having troubles with the selling of the food. Again, it's not all food, it's specific parts of the food. For example, eggs, because there's a strong, I know it sounds silly, but Russia doesn't have own capabilities to produce eggs at the expected ratios. Current egg drops for like, so how do I put it? In a lot of Western countries, we sell something that is called like poultry that is super genetically modified to produce high quality eggs, and a lot of them. Russia doesn't have this technology, genetic technology. So right now, with the import of these struggling, they are now being able to, instead of importing, I believe it was 6 billion per year or 6 million per year of these egg producing chickens, like in the eggs, like to produce then more eggs. They're now only able to import, I believe, like 3 millions or billions. I don't remember a precise number. It was 3 something and 6 something. So they halved, and they cannot sustain it. So right now, their supply cannot match the demand for the eggs. And their local technology doesn't produce chickens that are producing nearly in the same amount of eggs. So they cannot produce much the supply. In certain time, this will even out when the locals maybe scale, instead of saying, okay, we cannot produce as much eggs, maybe we should raise the prices and so on. So right now there is a little bit of panic, but it's only on specific products, on specific categories. The market will adjust, the producers will adjust, the prices will adjust, people will adjust. So I would not make a big deal out of it yet. Russia is not running out of food. They're trying to get the cocks to lay eggs. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, other parts it's pretty much the same principle. Like if it's some kind of growth, then they have problems with the seed material and so on. We should have sent the RAF we promised Ukrainian security when you got rid of the nukes. Pretty pissed that my shitty government let Russia get away with this. I couldn't agree more. Darren Williams, do you think the Republicans know that support for Ukraine, that their own children may be dragging into this war? Slav Ukrainian from Australia. I wouldn't put all of Republicans here. There is a lot of Republicans that do support Ukraine. The problem is that because they have such a piss poor majority in the House, they were struggling getting anything done at all this year. So now the election year starts and they need something like some kind of W over Democrats. So beyond that, MAGA proposed these options, and because they have slim majority, they need to get MAGA Republicans on board with something. So the only thing that they can go is some kind of MAGA narrative, and I think that they just saw that this maybe MAGA narrative of the border issue is potentially doable compared to some of the other crazy shit that the MAGA Republicans are putting up with. So they said, okay, we need a win over Democrats at all costs, and Ukraine is just being the cost. It's a very unfortunate situation, but I do feel that generally speaking, there is still support for Ukraine in there. But obviously, it's not a good position that Ukraine is being held hostage at a gunpoint. Specifically because let's be very clear, support for Ukraine is pennies for the U.S. economy. It's absolute pennies. It's not even noticeable. Like whenever you start actually looking at the numbers, like what's the percentage of like GDP and so on, it's not even funny. It's absolutely nonsense. It's blown out of proportion. There is no factual base for it. It's absolutely ridiculous that this argument is even being made, and this argument is just being used, and obviously it doesn't paint us in a good picture that our democracies are using suffering of other people to drive own political agenda. That's, like me from Europeans, that is not something I was expecting from the democracy, the democracy of the world. It feels kind of icky. I would expect that from Orban, because he's an asshole. Fuck him. But have you heard anything more about Russians in trenches and mouse fever infection? It's probably going to come up. It's going to kill more Russians, but it's going to get dealt with. Again, I'm not yet fully sold that it's such a big issue as it being blown into proportions. Romeo, being a biochemist and in touch with genetically manipulated organisms, I find it hard to believe that in the EU we do it with animals. Oh my God, is highly controlled. Did I miss something? What do you mean EU? EU, we do a lot of shit. Like just until recently, like we are on this fucking high horse. Like this is the thing that actually gets my gears going. It's like it's such a high horse. It's like the same argument is like, oh, you know, it's like Ukraine has corruption, and we like in the Western world we don't have corruption because we're such a squeaky clean. Bitch, please. Like we in the EU such a nice and friendly, and like we're not doing any harm with the animals and shit. Yes. And then I find out during Corona times that Denmark is basically #1 country in the world for mink producers. And I know it's a pain because in Denmark, 10 years ago when I came to Denmark, there was a big campaign fighting against chickens inside of cages. So there would be prohibited inside of Denmark to sell these cage chicken eggs. And it was a big deal, and I thought, it's like, wow, what such a great victory for animals in Denmark. And then I find out that we're literally doing mink production at a massive industrial scale, where mink production is literally just for their skin. Like, it's even worse. We're not even like well, I mean, meat is being later processed for something, but you get my point. And let's just say that they were not kept in very humane conditions. Like, if I don't want to show it on stream because I'm gonna definitely get demonetized. So, and that's like supposedly progressive and nice and like all of this good and shiny beacon of Denmark. Like other countries, like they have a lot lower standards. Like we are a lot, like we're not that far away from everything else in the world. Like it's very wrong to put us on some kind of high horse and say that's like, no, we're actually doing so great. Yeah. Yes. Your opinion on Ukrainian export corridor to the Black Sea? It's been great. Go Ukraine. I still see the unit calling for drones and cars and trucks and SUVs. Are you participating, running fundraiser for them? Yes, it's right now attached in the blue right on top of this chat. We're talking about different things. Genetic manipulation and animal well-being in industry. Two completely different things. Well, you put it like this. You said like, I'm not sure we're doing this. It's like, I can guarantee you we're doing this. Like selection is genetic manipulation. Like even selection is genetic manipulation. I thought you're aware of that. Like unless you're putting something else into that knowledge. Like we are specifically targeting to make sure that chickens that we have are producing more eggs. Fact is, maybe we're not going into the genome, we're not altering maybe the embryos, chickens, whatever, but we might still do selection or other semi-randomized genetic manipulation. That thing we do non-stop, I can guarantee you that. Man, we devolved into Ukraine to chicken support. Yes, chickens matter. Crusader Damien, Holland had their tulip collapse and Russia has its existential internal threat. Stand by, Russian collapse loading. Yeah, for sure. GMO is like selective breeding on steroids. Yes, like GMO is such a weird like, so with GMOs there has been like I've read a lot about GMOs specifically, like all of the scientific papers. Don't ask why. Like it was during when I was writing my thesis and I was procrastinating. I also read up about like how these oh my god, ants breed. Like procrastination is a bitch. So, but I read a lot about the GMOs and GMOs, but a big thing is literally not really such a big deal. Like it's literally not. It doesn't produce a lot of mutants. It's pretty safe. The problem with GMOs that I've heard is that certain GMOs, when like there are certain seeds that are produced by these GMO companies that can have a patent on these seeds, and then we could get locked in with unfavorable contractors that are providing these GMOs. So it's kind of like a thing. That was why they were kind of big no-no initially. And then again, for us in EU, GMOs don't really matter because we're overproducing food. We are over farming stuff. Like in Latvia, farmers get paid so they grow grass. So they don't grow any crops because European Union is overproducing food. That was actually one of the biggest threats to European Union of Ukraine joining the EU, because Ukraine has the best soil in the world, the absolute best. Like Ukraine is like a powerhouse of the world when we're talking about the possibility of producing food. It will so absolutely destroy the European food market. There will be a big problem for the whole Europe. Already right now, Europe is struggling because we're producing too much food. And if Ukraine comes along, I don't know. Yeah, Ukraine has 25 of the black soil. Black soil is crazy. Like I remember, I've seen Ukrainian fields. They're like on steroids. It's like it's like land that doesn't need fertilization, pretty much. Like think about it this way: they don't need fertilizer. The land is just that great. Rob Owen, how many ships are stopped and searched for contraband weapons? I mean, who's stopping them? What I don't like. Are you suggesting that Russia is stopping certain ships? Russia is not stopping shit. Like Ukraine is searching Russian ships with drones. That's true. But Romeo, I produce GMO once in a while. It's not a big deal. We agree. However, there is no laws allowing it in animals, only plants and bacteria, pharma industry and food industry. I mean, potentially, but we do feed our animals a lot of pharma, for example, for sure. And there are different practices. Again, not for this channel, not this discussion. But I mean, anyway, not the point. Like it's like you and like the point, and like you are like missing the whole point. Like the point is not what we do with our chickens. The point is our chickens produce more, Russian chickens produce less. Russians were buying chickens from us to make eggs. Now Russians cannot buy chicken from us, so they produce less eggs. Their economy is fucked. What can we do to help fight the info war against Vatniks? Demonetization, suppression via Vatnik. Looks like Jake Bro got hit yesterday for showing rubble clip on channel. I mean, that's not Vatniks, that's just YouTube policy. YouTube has been a bitch ever since it started, so it's just like the threat of demonetization is what every YouTuber needs to understand. That's why, for example, I don't want YouTube to be as my career. It's literally like living on a knife's edge. YouTube is really the worst because it can strike you for all the wrong reasons and they will tell you nothing, absolutely nothing. They will just answer some kind of BS, whatever. But we are living also in a very we are also covering very dangerous topics, specifically like war. It's not a very family-friendly topic. So covering it in the right way really matters. So Jake already talked about this a lot and so on. What happened with regarding the reporting from Ukraine, for example, was happening exactly to me. Exactly the same problem. I was not receiving almost any money from YouTube for a good half a year last year. I think it started from like November, October last year and lasted all the way up to like May this year when I finally started getting, finally seeing some money coming from YouTube. So it's just like YouTube just have its ways. That's why whenever people are bitching, they're saying, oh, I'm not just receiving what I'm supposed to. Yeah, well, welcome to YouTube. Hawk, if so much food is produced, why are so many people starving? Because they cannot buy it. Yes. No, I'm not talking about Wolverine mutants. Nope. Nope. I'm not going down that road. Search for Yanis Varoufakis. Fuck Yanis Varoufakis. He doesn't know shit. He is so full of himself. He has like the worst, like, I don't know, like porridge for brain ever. Like Yanis Varoufakis is the fun one of the like it's like a meme man. It's a guy that like talks smart, and then he is like every couple of speeches or articles or whatever he does, he's contradicting himself. Yanis Varoufakis is like a joke. It's hilarious that someone is taking him seriously. Like Yanis Varoufakis, like just Google Yanis. Like I don't need to look up anything. Just go to Twitter, look up Yanis Varoufakis, and you will find like people like essentially just literally just like checking his previous statements and throwing into his face his own words that he said previously. It's like hilarious. SB, if US pull back, Ukraine could attack Russia directly, potentially holding the territory to swap. Potentially great way to remove Russians' forces from frontline. Thoughts? Okay, again, SB writes, if United States pulls back, Ukraine could attack Russia directly, potentially holding territory to swap. Potentially great way to remove Russian forces from frontline. Thoughts? It's a dream scenario. You have no idea. There are reasons why Ukraine doesn't want to go on aggressive. It's because they will need to control that territory. That comes with another plethora of problems when you have hostile non-Ukrainian citizens that you. Then we go into the occupation. Like it's not a card game. Like it's so many layers of wrong. Let's just say there is a lot more problems than just kicking Russia out of Ukraine. Da Vinci, thanks so much for $1. Oh, €1, sorry. Oh. Yeah, Fakis. Russia Nazi. Have you heard about Ukraine EOD? He goes to Ukraine and helps demine Ukraine. He has a channel. Just want to spread the word so people know another hero. Yeah. I think if that's the person that I think it is, then for sure, like then shout out to him. If it's not the person and I'm just being trolled, then sorry about this. But I know there are people that go to Ukraine, help with demining, and they're doing the, if I can say so, God's work. So all the power to them. Happy New Year for sure, guys. Callas, now that the Black Sea is unblocked, can it be used for arms supplies for Ukraine? Might be more effective than through Poland and other countries with blockades. I cannot say. I didn't say you anything, but there is already deliveries by the sea of Ukraine with weapons. They haven't been going to Odessa so far, but the deliveries by the sea have been already made and are continuously being made. So weapons are already going to Ukraine. Romeo, sorry if already covered, but what about Russian missiles that entered Polish airspace? Why no action was taken? I mean, the action was taken. Poland said that they've called the Russian representative, told him not to do it. So there was a reaction. It's because, like, with this question, it's not completely clear for me what people expect the reaction to be. Like, do they expect that NATO just says, oh, it's an attack on NATO, Article 5, let's go, war. Yeah, it's not going to happen. We've already been over that. So it's not a new scenario. Remember, Russian drones already fell on the territory of Romania and exploded there. So it's not a first scenario, and it's not so on. Tosunabe, you made ad hominem on Yanis Varoufakis. This is about what he says about how corruption in EU works. May have a point. No, like, okay. So how do I turn it into ad hominem? So ad hominem is a dismissal of what the person states, because of his persona. Like I'm stating like, oh, he's Greek, therefore he has no influence on the world. That's ad hominem. But when I'm stating that he has a history of saying things that have been then later proven wrong, and then saying other things, and then it's been thrown to the face, I'm not saying ad hominem. I'm saying that whatever he's stating is not supported by anything, other things that he might be stating. Anyone can make a point about anything. He can be right, he can be wrong. What you need to understand is whether that point is made with a good foundation. And what I'm stating with saying that Yanis Varoufakis has been a complete dipshit in his statements is that he has not been a coherent, competent, and trusted source for receival of information. So I am not interested in spending my time in even injecting some of that potentially corrupt information into my brain. I hope that explains why this is not an ad hominem. Ad hominem has been overused and people have completely deluded from what does ad hominem mean. Saying that someone is dipshit because he has not said a word of truth, he's a liar, for example, is not an ad hominem. It's a constatation of fact. Oh, Lolo, hi Georgie, do you think Putin will announce mobilization or keep silent? After last time where millions ran to the border, Russia mod got publicly slammed for the lack of supplies. It seems risky. Cheers from New Zealand. Oh, now it doesn't matter because they've already introduced the electronic mobilization notices. So previously Russians could run away over the border because unless they received the notice in person, then they could have technically left Russia without being subject to enroll into the military. Now Russia has invested and created the electronic mobilization register. So now mobilization notices are being sent electronically and they're counted whether you read it or not. Like there is no check for that. So as soon as it in the system file, like on the Russian side, on the government side, it's like this guy has received a mobilization notice, at that moment that person can be mobilized. So as soon as these people come to the borders, they will instantly get like, oh, checked, and it's like, oh, it's time to go to army, comrade, because in my system, you're supposed to go. And then either that person have a lot of money so he can give the border guard and then cross the border, or he doesn't have the money and then he joins the Russian military and go fight in Ukraine. Do you think there is a way to get Russia to redistribute their forces from Ukraine so they're forced to defend their country, lightly defend border, lightweight strategy perhaps? It's been already tried, SB, right before Ukrainian offensive. It didn't work. Tosunabi, absolutely. Love you, man. Latvia, did Latvia win in hockey? Go Latvia. What happened for the folks of BBUA Analytics? What is a BBUA Analytics? Broward Baseball Umpires Association or Black and Blue Umpire Association. So I don't know what BBUA is. Thoughts on orcs being allowed to participate in Olympics? Yeah, Olympics being corrupt? What? Never thought about this. Crazy. What? Corruption in Olympic committee? Nah. No. What are these accusations you're making, my friend? I hope you understood it's a sarcasm, yeah. Because Olympics have been corrupt for so long now. Is Putin mounting troops to Kazakhstan? People say Kazakhstan might be next. Yeah, the shocker. Yes. Yes, the shocker. All right. It seems we're having a good time here, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna be here for 10 more minutes, maybe ask and answer a couple of questions more, but we're gonna slowly wrap it all up. And tomorrow I'm gonna make a video to hopefully congratulate you all. But New Year will come. I will stay with YouTube, monetized, demonetized, whatever the case. I'm not dependent on the profits from YouTube with my videos. I have a day job, and so it doesn't matter. I will do this until victory. We will win. Ukraine will win. It's going to be great. Michał, is Russia putting fire all over the world in order to cut supplies to Ukraine, Hamas, Serbia? I am like, well, definitely it plays into Russian interests. So I would not be surprised that Russian money or efforts are in that. Russia is spending a lot of money to destabilize situation in the world. So yes, it's possible. BB Ukraine Analytics is a YouTube channel. I have not seen this YouTube channel, so sorry for being just not knowledgeable on the subject. Sorry. Aussie? Dutch News said Russian economy is doing okay. Is that true? No. Russian economy is far from okay. Far from okay. It was like a media narrative. Maybe like 3 months ago, there was like a big wave about like sudden media just like looking at the Russian numbers, like the Russia posted numbers, without any critical assessment. And they're like, oh my God, Russia is like, you know, like, oh, it's doing great, like numbers are fine and so on. To which, like, after these couple of months and these articles started appearing, they started talking with the experts in the field. And then the experts in the field started explaining to them, you know, like, you're just completely missing the nuances here. It's like Russian economy is not doing well at all. So after 3 months, like majority of the media kind of understood as like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we were not as right as we thought. But there is still probably remnants of certain media in certain countries where they still haven't caught up. But yeah, it's Russian economy is very, very far from doing well. You should listen to, yeah, like I don't like to promote Russians, but Konstantin Samoilov on Silicon Curtain is definitely something you can double in. Tavarasal Moskrakyun. I will read your name because I can, and I will butcher it because I can. What do you think will happen with Transnistria? Transnistria, when Russia is defeated, is going to disappear. It has no autonomy. It only survives because Russia. I believe that there is now a little bit of lack of resolve in Moldova, but I do believe that maybe with Moldova now being starting negotiations on joining EU, there will be a desire to solve this conflict. To finally. Where will the female Russian athletes find razors for their beards? Yeah, I don't know. Probably in their KGB, how do you say, toolkit. Tosanabe, a few words on increased suicide of wounded Russian soldiers. Reasons wrong perception of Russian soldiers about UA captivity. Yeah, there is a lot of propaganda about UA captivity in the Russian soldiers, but there's like the Russian army is not doing that well as well. There's a lot of people refusing. Like there is now has been nice statistic came out with regards of like how many Russians are refusing to fight, and it's like a completely like a linear upwards trending line going up from start of the invasion, and it is very, very inspiring, because if the trend will continue, then Russia will start losing significant amounts of troops. Already by this point, during 2022, presumably Russia has lost to desertion more than like 10 or 15,000 troops, which is a lot, which is definitely a lot. Will Georgia territories be resolved when Russia loses the war? It could be, but unfortunately Georgia right now is struggling with the pro-Russian government. So only if the pro-European government will come in power in Georgia. QR, thank you so much for 200 Czech korona. I think that France at least not grant visa to Russian sportsmen, women who are active members of the military. I hope so as well, but it could happen, unfortunately. Also, props to Czech, was it like some minister that just like did the sickest mic drop recently with the when Russia summoned someone on the UN Council, and then Czech is like, yeah, nah, we're gonna come when you actually ask nicely. That was very nice. That was very nice. But I mean, UN is kind of joke, but still, good point. All right, yeah, keep the Olympics Nazi free for sure. We already had some Olympics with Nazis. We should stop it all. Anyway, Happy New Year, guys. Happy holidays if you have before, after, whatever you're celebrating. See you already New Year in another live, I mean, but the video coming tomorrow. And Slava Ukraini, trust in the Ukrainian armed forces. I love you all. I'll see you next time.